Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist. I would like to welcome you to an exciting new series I'm putting on each month in 2017. In the month of January, I'm going to go through 30 days to a better compliance program. So each day I will detail some part of a compliance program that you can utilize to help you improve to have a best practices compliance program for 2017. With the operationalization of compliance mandated by the Department of Justice in the form of their Compliance Counsel, Wei Chin, and incorporated into the FCPA pilot program announced by the Department of Justice in April 2016, it's more important than ever that you upgrade your compliance program and show how you've operationalized. In this series, I'm going to help you do that. I hope you will enjoy this series. I hope you will join me, and I look forward to this journey with you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of 30 days to a better compliance program. Today I'm going to focus on the Chief Compliance Officer. Not so much the role of the Chief Compliance Officer in creating, developing, and implementing a compliance program, but the role of the Chief Compliance Officer as it's viewed by the Department of Justice. So the Department of Justice wants to make sure that the Chief Compliance Officer has both the resources and support to do their job. And they do this, require this by a couple of different mechanisms. The first is that the Chief Compliance Officer has to have sufficient standing and autonomy inside of a corporation. This means that the Chief Compliance Officer needs to be a part of the senior management team of the company to have the sufficient standing. It may be down to things like, where's the Chief Compliance Officer's office? Is it on the C-suite level? But it also could be things like, how is the Chief Compliance Officer viewed and treated by the fellow senior executives of the company? This clearly can send a signal. Next, for the Chief Compliance Officer, do they have access to both senior management, the CEO, and the Board of Directors? Clearly, it's going to be important that the Board of Directors have regular reports from a Chief Compliance Officer, and we'll talk about the board's role in all of this in a separate podcast episode. Nevertheless, the Chief Compliance Officer needs to have access to the board. Many companies believe that having a Chief Compliance Officer with the direct access to the board, unfettered by a general counsel, is the way to go, but I've seen companies with very robust, successful, vibrant, and gold standard compliance programs have their Chief Compliance Officer report up through the general counsel. So what works is what works for your company and your organization. But having both the standing and the line of sight to the Board of Directors is going to be a critical component. Now I'd like to turn to more and greater information that we have received this year, or I should say in year 2016, from the Department of Justice's Compliance Counsel, Wei Chin. And back in April of 2016, when the Department of Justice pilot program around FCPA enforcement was announced, there was a prong around remediation that would be utilized to determine potential discounts to a company. And in this prong, there were several interesting comments by the Department of Justice towards the Chief Compliance Officer and the function of the compliance discipline within an organization. And for the first time, we started hearing things about not only the dedication of financial resources to a compliance function, but also dedication of payments and salary to the Chief Compliance Officer and the compliance function. Are they compensated within the scope of an appropriate level of management within an organization? In addition to the Chief Compliance Officer's compensation and salary, this was cascaded down throughout the organization. We also heard for the first time issues raised around the quality and experience of the Chief Compliance Officer and the compliance function within an organization so that the personnel could understand and identify transactions which imposed or posed a potential risk. So this brings up the question of whether you need to have some type of certification, or how can you show expertise in a compliance function? Is it because you've been in that industry multiple years? Is it because you have certification from an organization such as the Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics? Is it for some other reason that you've written extensively in the area? Is it because you podcast? There could be a wide variety of mechanisms. Nevertheless, it's going to be important that this expertise be demonstrated by the compliance officers, professionals, and the chief compliance officers within a company. On the another area that we had not heard previously was the DOJ wanted to know the availability for promotion within the compliance function and to the chief compliance officer. So could a chief compliance officer, for instance, be rotated through other senior management level positions, internal audit, IT, business development even, and the same would be true for the compliance professionals within the organization. Once you go into compliance, are you stuck in compliance? If you contrast that with, or think about that in the context of the corporate experience in legal, you might find that a little bit unusual because most lawyers who go into the corporate world stay in the legal department. There are some that go to other disciplines within the corporate organization, but typically lawyers will stay within the legal department. So what does it mean that your compliance officers stay within the legal department or don't stay within the legal department? So these were questions that the Department of Justice raised, and there's certainly things that they're going to look at going forward, and that means that you need to be ready to answer those yourself. And then finally, they emphasized once again on the resource issue that you need to be able to document that you have the resources available to you appropriate for your size organization. And this means that even if you don't have all the money you want, and of course you never do, you utilize other corporate disciplines. You utilize HR to help you do training. You utilize internal audit to help you do auditing and perhaps even monitoring. You utilize your IT department for communications. You utilize your corporate marketing and communications department. So how do you do that, and how you do that, and how you document how you've done that? So what are the three takeaways from day 3? Well, I think that number one, you have to be able to demonstrate access. And you have to be able to show that the chief compliance officer gets their information to the board of directors. Once again, we're going to talk about the board in a separate episode, so we won't really focus on their role. Number 2 is the resources. What resources are available to you? Do you spend more money annually on yellow sticky notes or paper clips than you dedicate to your compliance function? If you do, that's going to be a very bad optic when the government comes knocking. But have you benchmarked? What other information have you utilized to determine or present information that you're spending an appropriate amount on your compliance function? And finally, from the pilot program, what opportunities are available to your compliance function, to your chief compliance officer within the corporate framework for advancement? What's the dollar amount paid as salaries? And then finally, what's the quality and experience of your compliance personnel within your organization? At the end of the day, this may become the most important part or the most important takeaway. and you have to be able to demonstrate some manner of competence and be prepared to present that should the government come knocking. So for day 3, we talked a little bit about resources, and we talked about access and how the government's expectations of these are increasing. This is Tom Fox. Thank you very much for listening.